Sit on down, and I think we're good to go. Hello everybody, and welcome back to Season 2 of the Barry Bus Road Trip. Let's just jump into the stories. When we last left off, my buddy Nick and I had been hanging out in Utah. That part of the trip had come to a close, and I jetted off towards Wyoming. Wyoming was beautiful, but I didn't really stop much other than to get gas, and there was actually an app called Gas Buddy that helped me out a lot. If you open the app, it'll tell you what area you're in and where the cheapest gas around you is, and if you move the map around a little bit, you can see if there's cheaper gas somewhere else. I was kind of tired of spending like $9 a gallon, which only happened once, but still, I was like not gonna let that happen again. My van is also kind of impressive. That EJ22 Subaru engine that I have in that van gets me like 19 to 24 miles to the gallon, and one tank, I can go like 300 miles before well, I mean, that's kind of pushing it. But yeah, like 300 miles, that's pretty damn good. So I book it through Wyoming, and I get to this place called Arlington, and I settle in for the night. The day was mostly a beeline, and I'm sitting there thinking in the van like, I need to stop at some clubs or some bars every so often and just kind of get to know some people. The next morning, I woke up and I got to a gas station. The idea was to clean myself up a little bit, brush my teeth, do my hair, rinse my shirt in the sink so that I could actually, breathe while I'm driving down the road. But I also found out that getting coffee is really easy. See, before, when Trevin and I were on a road trip, we would take the Kelly kettle, we would put coffee in that, and then we would, make a little fire and heat ourselves up some coffee. Since I was alone and had been stalked by a bear before, I wasn't so inclined to go out into the woods and potentially end up in that situation again. So here's the trick. Take your ground coffee, take a French press, go into any gas station, they have like the big building and all that, and they just have hot water in there. So I'd walk in, I would take some of their hot water, I'd French press it, put it in the van, and then I'd go do my business inside, use the bathroom, rinse my shirt, whatever. And then by the time I got back to the van, the coffee's ready to go. I pour myself a cup, I take it back into the gas station and clean it, and it's good to go. So I'm in this gas station, I'm rinsing my shirt, right? I pull my shirt off and I'm rinsing it in the water, and this dude walks up and he's like, hey, no, get away, that's my sink. And I'm like, what? What do you mean it's your sink? He's like, I was using it. I was like, you were in the shitter, dude. You weren't using this sink. He's like, I had my stuff right there. So I grabbed my shirt and I walked across the street to a different gas station. I don't care. I don't understand. You're being so territorial about a sink. There were 4 of them. I don't know why he needed that particular one, but he wanted it more than I did. So I just took off. Heck with that guy. So I'm driving for a few hours and it got so hot. Mind you, I'm driving through the summertime right now and my van does not have AC. It got so hot I had to stop at another gas station and rinse my shirt again. Eventually I stopped and settled into this town called Agalala, or whatever it was called, and I just kind of tucked into a McDonald's and just used their AC. I was just done driving in the heat, and I started planning my route to get to Kansas. See, I have family in Kansas, and I wanted to see them while I was traveling through the middle of America. Now you may be asking, why don't you just Google map it? See, the problem is, there's something about the middle of the United States, there's no data, and there's no Wi-Fi, so you have to stop into a place. Using McDonald's Wi-Fi, I download the map, I get back into the van, and I start heading towards Kansas. Now the funny thing was, I don't know what map I had downloaded. It told me it was the fastest route, but I ended up on dirt roads. So I'm going through Kansas, and I'm driving in the dirt. So there's no way that there's going to be a gas station, and I'm almost running out of gas right now. I'm looking down and I'm like, I don't know if I'm gonna make it, right? So I'm driving through, and I come across this old decrepit gas station and I stop off, no gas. I start heading down the road a little bit further and it was maybe another 5 miles. And I get to this gas station, they're out of gas. Eventually, I feel like I was running off fumes. I don't know, maybe I was more than fine, but it's one of those tense situations where you're sitting there I am going to be bum broke down in the middle of someone's cornfield, for a couple days. See, my family, they told me, show up at the house and you can let yourself in, but we're not going to be home until maybe tomorrow. So you're going to be there all alone. And I was cool with that, but I was like, I don't want to be in the heat in a dead van and someone has to come get me gas tomorrow. Finally find this gas station. The pumps are on, the pumps are working, and actually, there was something kind of funny that happened. So I'm here in Kansas, and I just stopped off at a gas station. and I see this. Oh, that's beautiful. Let's see what that price was. Ooh, yeah. I did that. After I topped myself back up, I drove down the road, found their house, and tucked in. No one was home, so I had the whole place to myself. So the next morning, I wake up, and my uncle said that they'll be back around 4 o'clock. And I was like, okay, that's cool. They're like, yeah, help yourself to whatever you want. And so I'm scouring through their kitchen and realized very quickly that they are on a keto diet, so there's no sugar in this house at all. Not like I care, but it was blatantly obvious. So my mother calls me and she goes, hey, so since you have a lot of time, why don't you go down and see Jill? When I was 2 years old, I lived in Kansas. I don't remember any of that, but I do remember Jill. Jill was like my god aunt or something, you know, like she was completely family. And I was like, yes, I want to go see her. I go down to the house, she's not there. I drive back, and I'm just kind of chilling. My uncle calls me and he goes, hey, why don't you let our dogs out? They got these big labs. I think they were all 3 labs. I could be wrong. Maybe one was a golden retriever. But he goes, yeah, go ahead and let them out. And I was like, are they going to be weird because they don't know me? And he goes, no, the only one you might worry about is Duke. And I'm like, okay. There was Duke, Duchess, and Gus. Duke, Duchess, and Gus. So I let the dogs out, and they're all running around having themselves a good time, and I'm petting on all of them. And I realized real quickly that I don't trust Duke. I don't trust him. He's probably a good boy, but he was like nipping at me every so often. I was just like, nah, you and I, we're going to keep our distance. A little while later, Jill and her husband show up, and then not long after that, my aunt and uncle show up at the same time, basically. They all come in, I help them unpack a little bit, and we all just caught up. The last time I saw these people, the last real time I was 10, and then after that I must have been like maybe 21, I like something like that, you know. I remember, I think I was working at Walmart when I went and saw them last. We chatted for a little bit when my Uncle Richard said, hey Barry, I gotta go check on my sprinkler systems out in the fields. Do you want to come with me? I was like, yeah, I'd love to see it. So he takes me out and we're just looking. He's got like 2 or 3 large fields, and then he watches another field too. We just make sure the sprinklers are like working. He grew corn and millet, which I didn't even know what millet was. After Richard and I got back from the fields, he showed me a bunch of projects that he'd been working on. He had a bunch of cars and trucks that he'd been trying to fix up, and they were actually in his barn, which was kind of cool because he had a new litter of kittens that were in there too, so I got to play around with them. I went inside, we watched some TV, we ate dinner, and then with my cousin, I played some Smash Bros, which he was really good at. The next morning, I got up, we ate some breakfast, and I went into my cousin's room and I said, hey, you like to play games on your computer, right? He goes, yeah. I said, well, I'm a bit of a nerd. Why don't I download Yuzu for you, and you can play Smash Bros on your PC and all your other Nintendo Switch games. So I set that up on his PC, and he was like wildly excited about that. After that, I went over to Jill's house. Jill is a really difficult character to describe. She is like really just her own person, and I literally just couldn't tell you. You would have to meet her. She was telling me about my grandfather. She didn't grow up with my grandfather, but they were really good friends when he was alive. And he was apparently one of the best people that has ever existed. That's what everyone tells me about him. So she's telling me stories about my grandfather. She's showing me a bunch of paintings that she had painted herself. And she actually said, I want you to take one with you on the road. You know, is it going to get damaged? And I was like, I will keep it perfect. So I set it on top of my cooler, and that's where it remained the whole time. And I actually do have it. Funnily enough, she also had kittens in her garage that had just been born. They didn't even have their eyes open yet, and I was just sitting there playing with all of them. And eventually she starts asking me like, okay, tell me about your life, you know, because I haven't really seen you since you were a baby. So what has happened with you? I'm telling her stories about when I went to Vietnam, stuff about Alia and me and those weird connections that we had. I told her about going to the UK. I was telling her about the first road trip that I had taken with Trev. And she's just sitting there listening to all this the whole time. She was asking questions, but she was just like, eventually she said, you know, you're living a fairy tale. Your life is seriously a fairy tale. She kept saying that over and over. It was like making me really happy. I was like, oh man, that's so interesting. Because like, you know, you look at your life and you're like, I haven't done enough, you know? So for her to say that, I was like, oh, that's so cool. So after that, Jill says, hey, you want to go pick some corn in my field? And I was like, heck yeah. So we took her little side-by-side and rode down to the cornfield, And I jump out to go grab some corn. She looks down and she goes, "You're not allowed." And I was like, "Why? I want to pick some corn with you." She goes, "You're wearing sandals, okay? There are going to be rattlesnakes in here, and I'm not going to be the person who let you get bit. Your mother will kill me, and I will let her." And I was like, "Okay, fine. No worries, I'll let you do it." So she's like put on these big old, knee-high boots, and she's walking through and just picking all the corn. Man, I would love to have done that, but whatever. She comes back with this huge basket full of corn, and she's like, "This is for you and Richard and the family tonight, okay?" So I take the basket back to Richard's place, and he's already outside waiting for me. Apparently Jill had called him and let him know, "Yeah, I got some corn for you." He was like waiting right there. He's like, "We're gonna shuck corn right now." After that, we had ourselves some dinner, a buttload of corn. That was like dessert for sure. And I went outside, hung out with the kittens, let them bite on my toes for a little bit, and then I played Smash with Ethan until it was time to go to bed. The next day was pretty uneventful, except for the fact that downstairs in the basement area, which is where I was staying, I found this bug assault shotgun thing. It's this little shotgun where you put salt in it, and then you cock the thing and shoot flies. And there were flies everywhere. So I actually spent probably, oh my goodness, I don't even know how many hours watching TV, and as soon as I saw a fly, it was like, it was a game. It was so fun. I wouldn't even wait till they landed. I was sitting there I don't know how much salt I must have sprayed across that room, but that was a good-ass time. At about 6 o'clock, my Uncle Richard and my Aunt Angela decided that they wanted to go see the new Elvis movie at the theater there in Kansas. So I was like, okay, let's go. So we go to this theater, and this is the smallest theater I've ever seen. There are 2 projectors. They can play 2 movies at a time. It's owned by this one dude who sat in the concession line with us the whole time, just talking with us. And he was really passionate about it. I was like, "Where's the next theater?" He goes, "Oh, dude, you got to go real far to get to the next theater." I was like, "So you guys are always jam-packed?" He's like, "It's kind of like this, People see movies at home mostly. But yeah, it's a good time." I won't say much about Elvis, the movie. It was fine. That's basically it. After the movie was over, we went back home and settled in for the night. Thing was, my door, the room that I've been sleeping in, was closed because my cousin Michael, who is my age, had shown up and went to bed. That morning I get up and Michael's around. I go brush my teeth, I'm getting ready, Michael makes breakfast, and we just chatted together throughout the day. Everyone else was gone. I think Ethan had gone to school, or maybe he was doing a summer thing. There were meetings to be done and farm stuff to be handled, so it was just he and I, and we hung out, we watched shows together. At around 2 o'clock, I went back to Jill's. I was going to give her basket back, and we sat there and chatted a little bit more, shared some more stories, and she goes, "Hey, do you want to see where your grandfather lived?" And I was like, "Yeah, no, that'd be great." See, I had been on this property before, but it was when I was 10 years old. I hadn't seen this property in a long time. I'll tell you what, this property could really be something. Apparently, our family owns this piece of property and nothing's been really done to it. It needs to be kind of torn down and rebuilt into something, but I don't really even know what would grow there. I stood in the back of Jill side by side and recorded as she drove down and around the area. She would stop for a little bit and tell me, that's where we had all of the corn stalk, and this is where some of the field was. This is, we had a pool over here. It was really cool. Yeah, I don't know. I didn't get to see any pictures of what it looked like then, but looking at what it looks like now, it's just really neat to see all that. There were points where we had a couple deer running through, and we were chasing them around a little bit, trying to get some photos of them. When I got back, I told the family where I had been, and Michael told me that he had actually been meaning to go out there and clean that area up and kind of make it into, at the very least, turn it back into land so they could do something with it. And I think it'd be a good call. I just, again, this is the thing about Kansas. It'll rain in one area and never in another. Richard will get rain sometimes, and then he'll call Jill. And be like, "Jill, it rained. Did it rain for you?" And she'll be like, "No, I didn't get a drop." That's just how it is. And that particular spot, apparently used to be really moist back in the day, and nothing. It has not seen rain in 20 years. So I just don't really know what you would do with it. So the next day, I wake up and I tell the family, "Hey guys, some point today, I'm gonna take off. It's time for me to leave. Thank you guys so much for being so hospitable to me. I haven't seen you in such a long time, and I know we're family, but still, it means a lot." And they're all like, "You can stay as long as you want." I was like, "Well, you know, I got a friend that I'm going to go meet in Tennessee. If you guys remember Ian, I was going to go see him. So I'm telling them a little bit about Ian, and funnily enough, Ian calls me. So I go take the call, I get off the phone, and they're like, what's going on? I was like, well, Ian is apparently not going to be in Tennessee until the 15th. So if I leave today, I'm going to be in Tennessee way sooner than I need to. And they're like, that's perfect, so stay with us. And I was like, okay, sounds good. We didn't really do much that day. We had kind of a lazy day. We just sat in and had ourselves a good time. There was a point, though, where it rained. And I know that sounds mundane, but that's a really big deal. The whole family was like, it does not rain, and it never rains this season. So you must have brought this from Oregon. Thank you so much for bringing this. And I sat outside, and I played in the puddles, and I danced in the rain, and I was taking a few photos of it, because the sky was gorgeous. After the rain had come and passed, Michael and I went out into town, and I got pizza for the family. My own little way of saying thank you for allowing me to stay with you guys. When I got back, my aunt said, oh, Barry, real quick, when I was in town yesterday, I got you a gift, and I wanted to give it to you. She pulls out... Oh, I gotta go find that. She pulls out my very own bug assault. And she threw some salt in it already, so it's just ready to go. She goes, I saw how much fun you were having with it, and I imagine you'll end up with, you know, bugs in the van at some point, so I wanted you to have one. You just... I was like, damn right. I love that. It's a cute name. Bug Assault. You fill it with salt, you shoot you get it. But yeah, I was glad about that. The next day, I got up and I got all my supplies ready. I still had plenty of time before I needed to get to Tennessee, but I knew I wanted to stop in other states and see them before I actually made it there anyway. My uncle goes, well, wait, real quick. Your other cousin is in Oklahoma. So why don't you head that direction and go see him? I was like, that is perfect. I had such a great time hanging out with my family in Kansas. I hadn't seen them in so long, and I really cannot wait to see them again. I invited them to Oregon, and Richard was like, well, you know, I don't know if there's anything in Oregon for me. I'm like, you know, Kansas is pretty flat. There's no oceans, no mountains, no trees. Are you sure? Are you sure that there's nothing you want to see in Oregon? He's like, I don't know. You've seen a tree, you've seen them all. I'm like, all right, well, whatever. But with that, I'm going to close it out this time. Thank you guys so much for watching. We have so much more road trip to go through, and I cannot wait to share it with you. Thank you again, and I'll see you soon.